It's been a busy week, bro. A very, very busy week for the Cowboys. In regards to injuries, guys, coming back, guys getting hurt. In regards to players being added and released, kind of want to get a little bit of a rundown, a little bit of update on what's happening out there from an injury standpoint, as well as I'm going to talk to you about a specific player that got released. It kind of surprised me, but can you give us a skinny on the injury situations?
Yeah. Most recently, biggest news obviously is Chuma Edoga. He's going to be out for upwards of 10 weeks with a big toe injury suffered against the Rams in the preseason opener. So your backup tackle, he's down for the count. We'll see exactly when he can come back. That 10 weeks is an approximation. Could be shorter, could be longer, but the fact of the matter is he's not going to be available anytime soon, likely not until mid-October. Not long after, you lose Chuma Edoga, you lose Earl Bostic, another backup tackle. He was carted out of practice, a scrimmage, I should say, against the Rams, and he's on his way back to Dallas effective yesterday. He's set to undergo surgery on a leg injury, and we don't have a timeline on him quite yet. So he could be several weeks, or he could be season ending. I'm still doing some digging to figure out what Earl Bostic's situation is. So in the midst of losing Earl Bostic, they signed Cole Cabral, offensive lineman. He's done a lot of work at center and guard, but he's going to be looked upon to be flexible to possibly pop out to tackle as well. The immediate plan, though, is Awesome Richards gets the nod specifically at left tackle behind first-round pick Tyler Guyton, and they're going to keep Matt Waletzko, on the right side. So there's not going to be a lot of swing going on right now in the preseason between backup tackles. So you look at Matt Waletzko on the right side, they're going to kind of keep him relegated there. Mike McCarthy, they're going to keep former fifth-round pick Awesome Richards on the left side, and Cole Cabral is kind of like break glass in case of emergency type deal.
Yeah, so we got Deuce Vaughn, who returned yesterday, Israel Mukwamu. Those guys look like they'll be able to suit up tomorrow.
I think Israel Mukwamu is, I'm not going to say a long shot. Let's call him a medium shot because he's been out of practice for a couple weeks, if not more, with that groin injury. But there's a chance, absolutely. Deuce Vaughn, I think Deuce Vaughn is 100% go, as well as Royce Freeman. Royce Freeman and Deuce Vaughn, they just needed to get through yesterday's practice in order to be good to go. But prior to yesterday's practice, Mike McCarthy basically told us that they're going to play as long as they don't suffer a setback. And they did not. They still look good. Deuce Vaughn, I would argue to say that he, between yesterday's practice and the practice prior, which is when he returned to in the scrimmage against the Rams, that was his best practice I've seen all camp. So I'm interested to see him now, and Royce Freeman as well, in this preseason game against the Raiders, because this is a big game for both of them. Not simply Royce because, he was signed this offseason and it's a one-year deal and veteran minimum, ... versus Deuce Vaughn, who, came in as the rookie, and there's all this pomp and circumstance around him. That doesn't make Deuce Vaughn safe in this running backs room battle because he's missed a lot of time with that hamstring injury over the past couple of weeks. And as it stands, clearly they're bubble wrapping Ezekiel Elliott. They're mostly bubble wrapping Rico Dowdle. He might get a handful of snaps like he did against the Rams, but for the most part, he's good to go. But then when you talk about Hunter Lipke, if you treat him as a running back, he's going to make the roster. Mike McCarthy was praising Malik Davis yesterday. You got Snoop Conner in the mix, who's had an up and down camp. I'm still of the mindset, don't sleep on Nathaniel Pete. He could pop off at any moment, and if he does, makes things that much more tenuous for guys like Deuce Vaughn and Royce Freeman. So they got to get out there in Las Vegas, and they got to show something.
Yeah, a couple of days ago, Damone Clark and DeMarvion Overshown left practice, the Rams scrimmage, but I haven't heard anything since. What's going on with those guys? And is DeMarvion Overshown basically ruled out for tomorrow?
Yeah, I would pencil DeMarvion Overshown as out for tomorrow. First, let me preface by saying, first of all, biggest headline, and y'all got to work with me on this because, like Will told y'all, West Coast, he woke me up. So I'm right. Yeah. Let me get my brain right. Brandon Cooks. Okay, I know a lot of people were concerned about Brandon Cooks leaving practice yesterday. It was due to knee soreness, I'm told. He did not go down on a drill or on a rep or anything like that. He quite literally removed himself from practice. They took him over to the medical tent to kind of feel out some things, and they basically just shut him down basically due to knee soreness. So I'm told there's no major concern as we have this conversation. Hopefully that stays the case. But yesterday, everybody was copacetic about it. Like, no big deal. Okay, I'll take it as that until further notice. So that's the latest on Brandon Cook. Circling back to DeMarvion Overshown and Damone Clark, I'm also told nothing serious there. DeMarvion Overshown suffered what they're calling a hip pointer in that scrimmage against the Rams, and they're basically just being very precautious with him, right, for obvious reasons. So that being said, nothing major, but you may not see him on the field against the Raiders. You might. It's going to be a game-time decision, but it's 50-50. If I had to flip the coin right now, I'd say no, you sit him down, and then you get him his reps against the Chargers if that's how things go. But if not, I mean, as it stands, physically he should be okay. Damone Clark, he's dealing with a little bit of a knee injury. He didn't practice yesterday. He was off to the side with Britt Brown doing rehab. I did see him walking off the field. Slight limp, but I talked to him. He said, he'll be fine for week 1, and I'm going to hold him to that. So that's where we are on those two guys.
He just got a pimp limp. That's all. He good.
Yeah, that's all. It's nothing major. It's a little swagger in his gait.
Swag
That's
limp,
all.
yeah. So the Cowboys traded for a behemoth of a defensive tackle in Jordan Phillips. They also signed Carl Lawson, one of the edge rushers. Cowboys fans been clamoring for a long time as well. But they had to make some roster moves. Shaka Toney was the big name that happened. Not the big name, but the injury name, I should say. But Carl Davis got released yesterday, and I thought that was interesting. And if I'm not mistaken, Pat, before I get on my Carl Davis rant here, there's also another move that needs to be made, correct, to fit these guys on the roster.
Yeah, there's another move coming, and it has to be made likely today. The reason it wasn't made on yesterday was because they had time to think about what that move's going to be, simply because the trade for Jordan Phillips didn't happen until late the previous evening, so it didn't get processed by the league office until yesterday. And Jordan Phillips had to catch the flight from Buffalo, and he arrived yesterday afternoon, late afternoon. I saw him when he came in. First of all, that is a unit.
I was about
grief.
to say.
Good grief, dude. Oh man, listen. Yeah, his shirt. I mean, you could take the tarp off a car and make it into a shirt for this dude. That is a building. So needless to say, physically looks great. He looks like exactly what they need as far as just plopping this huge 6'6", 340, 45-pound guy right at one tech. So yeah, he's in the building. What the move for Shaka Toney, that balances that. Waived injured for Shaka Toney, groin injury he suffered against the Rams. Unfortunately for him, the Penn Stater is out, and Jordan Phillips is into that slot. Now Carl Lawson, he's expected to be signed and made official today. He was en route yesterday,
okay.
But in order to do that, who do you move out of the way? And that's the question that the Cowboys have to answer. Now Carl Davis, I mean, obviously he's going to be waived, but the reason that surprised me was for a couple of reasons. Carl Davis actually was not bad.
Right. That's why I was shocked. Yeah,
Carl Davis was having a really solid camp. I'm not going to say it was this great camp where he was a camp star like, some of the other names that we've thrown out there, like a Tyron Bailey Johnson or anything like that. But it was a very strong camp behind Mazi Smith. So that was a bit surprising, especially on the heels of what happened with Albert Huggins and the Rams intern, because I was standing right there when it happened. I mean, I was on that goal line when he did that. I was uploading another video for you guys because I love you guys so much, and by the time he finished shoving the guy, I couldn't get my camera up fast enough, so win some, lose some. But, yeah, when he did that, first thing popped in my head was like, dude, what are we doing? Like, what is this, right? Because that's not okay. I mean, you're 3 times the guy's size. You're in full pads. You're going full momentum. The guy launched back 7 yards.
Yeah.
He was probably 130 soaking wet. And then after that, if it wasn't intentional, just walk up to the guy and see if he's okay instead of going back to the huddle, putting the middle finger up like, badass Jones or whatever. But so I was surprised. I mean, you let go of Carl Davis, who was having a strong camp, for Albert Huggins, who almost got your scrimmage canceled. who also has just arrived. So I don't see how he had the cachet to be able to escape that, but he did, at least for now, because again, there's still another transaction that needs to happen. But Mike McCarthy said Albert Huggins took accountability, he apologized, and the standard was reset with him, and we'll see how the rest of his camp goes.
So the Carl Davis release surprised me for the same reason you said in regards to camp, but also he put out decent film against the Rams. I thought he was way better than Albert Huggins. I thought he was one of your better defensive tackles in general in that game. Now they all did some things in spurts, but I thought Davis's moment was brighter and longer than the rest of those guys. Also, just the room. You don't have a lot of defensive tackles, and you moved off of a healthy one, a veteran guy, to bring in another veteran, a better player. Don't get me wrong. And again, we're not sitting here trying to boast up Carl Davis. It's just when you have a guy like Huggins who did not play well at all, he was your worst player probably on defense, and then he did what he did. It just baffled me, and it made me think, is this a money type of situation? Because if I looked at Carl Davis's contract, it was like 1.3, almost 1.4 million. And the guarantees were extremely low. So he would cost a little bit more than Huggins would. And they did just sign two veteran guys like Carl Lawson and Phillips, who are going to be a little bit more than probably $1.12 million. So all I could think about is maybe they wanted to save a couple bucks, because it just makes no sense to keep Huggins and move on from Carl Davis.
And I don't think it's the financial component, because, like you said, it's just a couple bucks, and it's not going to make or break a deal with Carl Lawson or anyone else that they wanted to sign. And they added some other guys like Darius Harris, the linebacker, Nick Vigil, the linebacker. But I think when you're talking about Albert Shovins, because he wasn't out there hugging anybody, so when you talk about Albert Shovins, I think it was just a situation where it might be one of the or a couple of the defensive coaches. This is what popped up in my head yesterday. Pure speculation, but this is what we're doing right now. I think that one or two of the defensive coaches really want to see what Albert Huggins has, and they think that he has something that they can tap into versus what they had seen from Carl Davis, which was a solid camp. Absolutely. And like you said, folks, we're not gassing Carl Davis. No. We're not saying that, he's peak Jonathan Hankins or he's Aaron Donald or anything like that. What we're simply saying is, if you were going to swap out pieces to upgrade, then you probably would have considered swapping out Albert Huggins for Jordan Phillips and kept Carl Davis, and then that would have, as a collective, that would have made you stronger. Yeah. But instead, you went with Huggins, who had the weaker film than Carl Davis, and that's what's the head scratcher. So, but no, I don't think it was the financial component. I think just talking with a couple of the defensive guys like Paul Gunther after the Huggins trade and hearing what he said, signing, and hearing what he said about Huggins, I think that they just want to see what they have in him. So this may not be the end of their relationship with Carl Davis, because keep in mind, that was his second stint with the team anyway. So, it's very possible. Yeah, it's very possible that they circle back to Carl Davis, because as we sit here, again, there's no reason to pretend Carl Davis is an Aaron Donald. Does that mean that he won't receive interest elsewhere? I mean, obviously it's possible, especially with the solid film he put out against the Rams. But I wouldn't go worried about it too much in the capacity of, he'll never come back to the Cowboys if we need this depth. I disagree. If he's not employed and they call him, he's coming back.
That's a good point, too. They very well could hit him with a wink, like, hey, we're going to cut you because we just need to do some roster gymnastics, but we're going to bring you right back because we may be putting certain guy on IR, et cetera, because Bostic, Edoga, hell, Nate Thomas has been out for a while. So.
And Nate Thomas is dealing with some stuff as well. So I mean, they got a couple weeks or so before the regular season gets here. They got until late next weekend, or the weekend after, I should say, before they need to do the roster cut downs. And I mean, it's football. As you're dealing with Nate Thomas and some of these other guys, or Bostic is going to likely be moved to IR with Tume Doga when they move him to IR. You're going to have some roster gymnastics. Yeah. And you're also, knock on wood, but it's reality, somebody else is going to pull something, right? Somebody else is going to strain something between now and the final game against the Chargers in August. So, you kind of play the game a little bit. And I think that's what they're doing with Carl Davis. I think he ends back up on the practice squad or something like that.
We got our insider, Patrick Nosey Walker, DallasCowboys.com. Pat, tomorrow's game 2 of preseason. And I think, the same amount of eyeballs are going to be on the two players that were talked about last week. Trey Lance, Mazi Smith. And for Trey, I've been saying this not all off season, but after a few practices and whatnot in camp, it's just about stacking good days, man. He's got to stack good days. He's got to stack good games. And at this point, just stack some reps. And after his game last week, you want to see, okay, how do I bounce back from this? Or how do I build from this or learn from whatever? And I'm hearing some good things down there this week for Trey. I know it's not like earth-shattering things, but you want to hear positive things coming out of camp from Trey. So kind of your thoughts on what you're looking for Trey Lance tomorrow, because I want to see him just let it rip. But I think he needs to build his confidence to get there.
Well, let me be clear, and I said this on Twitter, I believe, yesterday. Yesterday was Trey Lance's best day of practice.
You love to hear.
I'm not kidding. And I'm not saying that to say, let me qualify this the right way, or I should say, let me frame this the right way. I'm not saying he had a Dak Prescott level practice, because Dak is just out there cooking. He's just cooking. I'm not even saying that Trey Lance had a Cooper Rush level practice. And I know people are going to be like, oh, you didn't have a Cooper Rush. Cooper practices very freaking well, right? He's a steady hand. That's why he's still QB2. But all things considered, when you look at the struggles that Trey Lance has had in camp, when you look at the struggles he had against the Rams, a lot of it was based upon indecisiveness, taking too long to process, not trusting his arm to make the throw, not throwing the guy open, thinking the window is going to be open longer than it is. I didn't see much of that yesterday in practice, and I was impressed with that. And I even pointed it out on a couple of videos where typically to this point in training camp, when the pocket breaks down, he's off to the races. He's off. But there are a couple of occasions where he escaped the pocket, escaped the pressure, and scrambled out. But before he passed that line of scrimmage, he was still eyes downfield. He didn't dip his helmet. He was eyes downfield. He was still looking for the play. And on one of those occasions, he got some help when, rookie Ryan Flanoy broke off from his guy in the end zone, and it ended up in a touchdown. And my point to that is to say sometimes you need to take off and run and get what the defense is giving you. But at other times, you need to keep your eyes downfield and feel the pressure behind you while still looking for the big play downfield. And I saw a good mix of that yesterday. A couple of times he did take off and run, but on those occasions, he should have. He needed to. Nothing was developing downfield, so he got the yardage. But then when they, in times like what I'm talking about with Ryan Flanoy, he gave his receiver an opportunity. The throws looked better. Was he perfect yesterday? No. Were there some throws that he should have made? Yes. But again, I say all of that to say I see progress, and I'm hoping this progress now translates to the game versus the Raiders, and hopefully that film looks better than the Rams. But he is making progress. Problem for Trey Lance is he's running out of time to continue making progress. Only has 2 games left.
Yeah, you bring up the word process. That's the other thing I'm looking at tomorrow for Trey is, hey, can he process things better? Because that definitely wasn't the case and it's not going to be. So he hasn't played in a long time. He doesn't have the experience. He literally hasn't played a quarterback position in his lifetime that long. So you saw those issues with processing. I don't think that's going to just all of a sudden be good enough to be a starting quarterback off of 2 preseason games, but you still want to see some progress in that. So tomorrow, if he can get back to get the top of his drop, be confident in what he sees, if he knows what he's seeing and deliver the ball, that will be a huge step for Trey Lance tomorrow. Just even if you happen to, here's the thing, he doesn't like to turn the ball over. I get it. So he's hesitant. But if you make the right read and it just happens to be the ball gets tipped or something like that, then so be it. But let the thing fly, Trey. We want to see you let the ball flow because you have a strong arm. And one thing I noticed yesterday, Pat, he had more touch on some of his throws yesterday. So maybe he is learning because he had no touch last week.
Exactly. And that's something I pointed out as well. And I pointed that out during the game, I believe, against the Rams, where I said there's something lacking on when it comes to the touch on his pass. He had that pass to Jalen Cropper. Number one, he didn't pull the trigger fast enough, which goes back to process, see the window, throw it into the window. Trust your arm, trust the receiver to make the play. And to your point, if that turns into an interception, okay, that sucks. But if you don't trust yourself, then that doesn't turn into a touchdown either. But then, late throw, and then he sails it out of bounds. And then you go back and you look at the film and you see the deep go route, right side, Cam Johnson, that ball sails as well. Now, I add that to the totality of plays I've seen in camp, and so many of his throws have sailed on him when they're going downfield versus when you look at what Cooper Rush is doing, when you look at what Dak Prescott is doing. Notice how Dak and Cooper are able to drop it in the bucket 50 yards downfield. For whatever reason, I don't know if it's his grip on the ball or the flick of his wrist being slightly different. I don't know what it is, but once his ball goes up, it has a hard time dropping down where he wants it to drop down. So something that I figure that, he and Scott Tolzien, the quarterback's coach, will kind of get in the lab and try to figure out. But I'm starting to see some of that change. Not drastic change, but some of that change. So when he gets out there at Allegiant Stadium, I'm hoping to see more touch on his passes so that he can kind of get those chunk plays with his arm because, everybody knows he can run. So for everybody throwing a tantrum and saying, well, it's 4th and 3 from the goal line, you got to run that in with Trey Lance. This is not a regular season game. Calm your buns. This is not a regular season game. This is evaluation. The reason they call the pass play is because they need him to throw the ball and make that difficult decision and make that difficult throw. That's the evaluation process. What does it benefit them if he runs that ball in from 3 yards out? And yeah, the Cowboys win the game. It's preseason. What was just evaluated? Nothing. Can he run? Yeah, but you knew that already. It's evaluation. So talking to Mike McCarthy yesterday, he said basically expect more of that against the Raiders in situations where, you could call a QB sneak, but they're going to drop him back and tell him to make the throw because it's evaluation. It's not about wins and losses, right? Hey, so when it comes to Trey Lance, it's just he just needs to continue to progress. But everyone watching Trey Lance outside of the building, temper your expectations because if you came into this preseason thinking, okay, well, he's going to show us that he can be a starter in the league, well, you set yourself up for disappointment. Bring your expectation down. Expectation has always been that he's going to battle Cooper Rush. He's not battling Dak Prescott. And if you keep it in that reign, it makes it easier to understand why they're calling the plays they're calling because they're trying to see if he can do what Cooper Rush can do. Because as it stands, he can't do what Dak Prescott can do.
Yeah, he's a long ways from being anybody's QB1, but he's got some time. Just don't know if it's going to be here. Real quick, because I know you got to get going here. Mazi Smith, that's the other guy that a lot of people are going to be watching, especially with Jordan Phillips being brought in. Y'all got a chance to speak with him, extensively, probably more than, he spoke with the media in the last year, maybe since last training camp. And he wrote a fantastic article, by the way, Cowboys Nation. Go check it out at DallasCowboys.com. Kind of your takeaways from y'all meet with Mazi yesterday.
First of all, this is a different dude. And I want you guys and ladies and gentlemen to take what I'm saying seriously. I am one of only 2 Cowboys media persons, and that means on the beat, period, covering the beat, who were at the airport to pick up Mazi, rode the bus with him on the way, and I got to see Mazi up close initially. I get that personality. That personality kind of faded immediately last year for whatever reason. And it could have been a Jalen Tolbert situation during the headlights. This is a lot more than I thought it was going to be. Could have been all of that. But I think what everybody then saw was the ho-hum Mazi Smith. Oh, man, I don't know what they want from me, Mazi Smith. Like, he had that air about him. Talking to Mazi Smith, not just yesterday, but this offseason period, but especially going into this camp, he's smiling more. He's more talkative. He's being more outward with his personality. He's being more candid. Yesterday we were asking him about, because everyone's seen the clip now of just Jeff Zgodina calling him Mickey Mouse and saying, if you want to go work at Disneyland is like 20 minutes down the road. Now, you can't coach everyone like that because not everyone will respond the right way. And you wondered how would last year's Mazi deal with this year's Jeff Zgodina. Well, then, what did Mazi say yesterday? He was like, man, this is a rough sport. This ain't Candyland. Right. He laughed after he said that, and he said, my mom said that he's the type of coach that I need. And then he said something that really jumped out. He was like, I wouldn't trade his energy for anything. And I love that. He's embracing what Zgodina, Coach Z is what they call him, what Coach Z is giving him, and he's using it to progress. And you see the progression. He came in at the appropriate weight, give or take a few pounds. He came in and his get off on the ball has drastically improved. I provided evidence to that on several occasions on Twitter with the footage, so that evidence is there for you. His demeanor as far as his teammates and how he's been taken under the wing of Micah Parsons. Hey, I thought Micah Parsons wasn't a leader, so says some people, but okay. But all things put into a pot and labeled Mazi, this is a much better Mazi Smith. Mentally, it's a much better Mazi Smith. Physically, this is a much better Mazi Smith as a football player. And now that's why you go back and look at the film against the Rams. And yeah, and to his own admission, he said, I love some plays out there, but I know the player I can be, and that's what I'm working to get toward. I feel like I can make every play that comes inside. That's not how Mazi was talking last year, right? Mazi last year was very, well, yeah, I'll do whatever they need me to do. That's not what this is, and I love it. I love that his aura has completely changed. His mentality has changed, and I think he's going to do some big things this year. I really do.
I think it feels like he understands the pressures of playing with the Cowboys, and now obviously adding a guy like Jordan Phillips. And sometimes you need to have that understanding. You need to know, okay, yeah, I was a first round pick. The honeymoon's over though. If I don't continue to get better, they will look for players, especially Mike Zimmer. They will look for players to come in here and take my job. And you know this old saying, pressure bust pipes or it makes diamonds. Yep. So I like that he's kind of acknowledging, they brought Phillips in here. We want the competition. We don't want to be content. Yeah. And he's moving in that way. Much like Trey with baby steps, Mazi needs a little bit more than baby steps because we're more reliant on him. But as long as he's getting better, that's all we could ask for. And I think he is a better player than last year. Again, how much, that's to be determined.
But see, and that's the thing. He's not even taking baby steps right now. He's taking strides.
Yeah, we need more than baby steps. We need strides. There you go.
Yeah, and he's taking those strides so far in camp. And I feel like, yeah, you're going to have some growing pains against teams like the Cleveland Browns and mobile quarterback and Deshaun Watson and things like that. Yeah, he's going to have growing pains over the first portion of the season as he's thrown into that starting nose tackle role. But I think before the season is all said and done, his confidence is going to be where it needs to be. He has the support system, Coach Z, Coach Greg Ellis, Mike Zimmer, obviously, whose scheme is putting him right back where he needs to be as far as that definitive nose tackle. And then you have the mindset of, they trade for Jordan Phillips. That could have been looked upon as a slight by Mazi. Keep in mind, last year, like I said, the Mazi Smith of last year was the, I'm just trying to figure out what they want from me. And he could have taken that slight, and it could have dipped his confidence again. Here's a portion of the quote he gave us about Jordan Phillips. He said, that's what you want. You want a room full of competition. You don't want anybody to relax. This is football. You know what I'm saying? End quote. He's looking at that as competition, and it's stoking his fires even more at the same time, because I followed up with that by asking, how do you balance competing with a veteran while learning from a veteran? And even his answer to that was phenomenal as far as gleaning whatever he can from a Jonathan Hankins or a Phillips. And he basically said, you look at what they've been doing to remain in the league for 10, 11 years and to remain a starter in the league, and then you compare that to what you're not doing, and then you start doing what they're doing. So Mazi Smith, he gets it. He didn't get it last year, just like Jalen Tolbert didn't get it in year one, but then got it in year two and definitely has it going into year three. Something has clicked with Mazi Smith, and it's no surprise that it's at a time where the Cowboys have brought in these heavyweights of support, Greg Ellis and Jeff Zbonina and Mike Zimmer, and it's all working right now, and hopefully it continues to work. He is on the right trajectory.
Let's see him stack tomorrow. Hey, Pat, I appreciate you coming through every week like you do, man. Go get you some rest. Y'all traveling today or traveling tomorrow?
Yeah, I'm up, so I gotta shower, get dressed, and gotta pack. So we on the buses to LAX around lunchtime, and then we going to Vegas, baby.
Man, you living a dream. Hit one of them casinos and hit the jackpot for your boy, bro.
You say that, but 15 minutes before call time, you hit the phone and you're like, oh man,
they don't gotta know. They don't gotta know. Y'all should have heard Pat. Pat didn't even answer the phone and say hello. Pat said,
what's up? I'm dealing with some things, man. To be fair, though, ladies and gentlemen, to be fair to myself, I did hit Will last night, and I was like, hey, we good? And he didn't reply before I dozed off, so I didn't set the alarm. So then my phone starts ringing.
Come on,
You know, at around 6:45 at this time, and I opened one eye and it said still, and I looked at the clock and I'm like, oh shit.
Pat, I'm old, dog. Like my fans know
You
I'm
set me up.
old. I go to sleep early. You hit me up. I was already asleep. Me and wifey gone.
Nah,
I woke up in the middle of the night
bro.
because the baby, and I was like, well, let me go ahead and respond back to Pat because I, make sure we on the same page. And we wasn't, but we got it done, man. You killed it.
Man, folks, listen, everybody in the live chat, I need y'all to get it. Give Will hell. Tell him you've been covering this team long enough. The hell you sleeping early for? You know, we got contracts hovering above our head that might land. You better wake your ass up.
Hey, Pat. You are a father, so when you can get some sleep, you gotta get to sleep. Baby boy, he wanted to sleep at 8 something. I said, well, you know what? I'm going to sleep at 8 something. God dang, that's just the way it is, brother. That's the way it is.
I give you that. I forgive it this time. I'm just saying,
you.
folks. There's a reason that he caught me slipping, but it's his fault. Hey, much love.
It is my fault.
I talk to y'all soon, bro.
All right, man. Much love, bro. That's Patrick Nosey Walker with the science, man. The scientific method.